All right, hey guys. So we just saw Skyscraper, and it was okay. I actually didn't really talk to you about your opinion of it yet. So why don't you start?
Just generic action movie, kind of. Just more of the action explosions, duct tape.
One of the things I had heard some people saying about it was like that it's so over the top. It's like an '80s action film, so it's just fun to make fun of. And I felt like it honestly wasn't quite that level yet.
No.
There was parts of it where it's trying still to be a serious movie, like it was trying to be sincere and sweet. And I'm like, if you're gonna jump the shark, just jump it all the way. You can't go halfway, or you're just
Yeah.
gonna get eaten by the
Yeah.
shark. And I felt like
Yeah.
this only half committed, and it really hurt it in that way.
There's just a few scenes that were just kind of silly. Like,
Mhm.
nothing like, yeah, like you were saying, like 80s movie over the top.
Yeah.
Nothing, no more than, like, maybe, like, Die Hard.
Yeah.
Like nothing more than that, in which I enjoyed that movie, actually.
Yeah, but because like Die Hard had some ridiculous stuff, but it wasn't too much, and it genuinely took itself seriously. This
Yeah.
only half took itself seriously.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy into when it was trying to be serious. I thought The Rock was good. I thought he was fine. I thought the wife was fine. What was her name?
Nev Campbell's the
Nev
actress.
Campbell, yeah.
She's Scream fame.
Um,
It's kind of shocked to see her in a movie still.
but well, this was her first time back in a while. I know.
Yeah, I haven't heard of her in years.
But I didn't care for the kids at all. I didn't think that the relationship. I had one of the things that I heard that made this movie actually watchable was the family's relationship, and I didn't buy into it at all. I thought like the whole he said at the beginning, he was like, "Who does Daddy love? Who does Daddy love?" And I was just like, this doesn't seem real at all.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it didn't seem like he genuinely cared about them. I don't know. Obviously he doesn't. It's acting. But I
Right.
saw through it right away.
Yeah.
I felt like, and other than them, none of the actors were remotely memorable at all. There was particularly this one Asian girl who was a bad guy, was terrible. Every time she said anything, I was cringing. She was bad.
So the motivation for the bad guy was kind of silly.
I felt like it was confused too.
Yeah.
Like we'll get more into that in spoilers, but I felt like the first section of the movie there was one motivation and then it switched, and I was just like, well, that's confusing and
Yeah.
it was convoluted.
We were talking in the beginning, like they made it seem very obviously who the bad guy was going to be,
Hmm.
and then I think I said kind of did a twist.
But not really.
Yeah, but not really.
But not
'cause
really.
He still
Just
was
kinda,
the bad guy. He still was
but
a
not
bad
really.
guy, right? Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you care about this because this is more of like a nerd thing, but it bugged me that it took place in Hong Kong, and here's why. All movies are moving to Hong Kong, and I don't know if you've realized this, but like, you know how people would always make fun of all the action sequences are always in New York. Why are they always in New York? And it was because that's, the movies take place in New York, and Americans want to see America in their movies. Well, recently there was this trend started by Disney where you put the movies in China. And the reason that they do that is because China is actually a really big area for revenue in movies. So they're trying to appeal to the Chinese audience. It's become a trend that's almost as obnoxious now as seeing a big action set take place in New York. Now it's always in China.
Yeah.
It's always in China. And it's like, can you be a little bit more creative with this? Like,
Yeah.
just a little bit? So overall, I mean, like, if you can enjoy it for it being like an over-the-top action movie, that's fine. But I didn't think it went far enough. I didn't think it did enough to be that kind of jump the shark type movie. It was just in the middle boring, honestly, which is disappointing because it wasn't a good movie and it wasn't a bad movie. It was just forgettable.
It should have owned up to the over the topness and just
Yeah.
ran with it. Kind
Yeah.
of like the Expendables kind of does.
Yeah, be proud.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
gonna be bad, be
right.
proud of it.
Exactly. I guess at least this was an original movie. It wasn't a sequel.
Except
a
it was
remake, or-
Die Hard. It was Die Hard.
Yeah, it was Die Hard with The Rock, I guess.
A lot of the computer stuff just was really stupid. Like, I felt like the way that the building was set up and how everything was one, really convenient, like you said, and two, just dumb. It was like somebody who didn't know anything about how computer systems work or how buildings work wrote the script, which is probably true.
Yeah.
But it's like, normally you get a consultant, you ask people about it,
Yeah.
and it really felt like he just went for it, like, this seems like a good story. And I'm like, he didn't ask anybody first.
Once they overrode the system, there were several other times that people used the system that they overrode and shut down.
And did things that they said they shouldn't be able to do
Yeah,
anymore. And I was just
exactly.
like, come on, just maintain a consistent story at least.
The son had like an asthma problem, but like you thought it was going to be an epic thing at one point.
It happened once.
Yeah, he kind of had heavy breathing once, and that was it. And then it was like, all right, but why even bring it up? Why even have that?
Why even have the kids? I think this movie could have been better if the kids and the wife weren't in it, and it was just Die Hard, you know, with Dwayne Johnson, you know? Like, I mean, obviously you had to tweak the ending because the ending involved the family. Can't get into that. But, yeah, if it was just Dwayne Johnson, then you would have had, one, more time to go over the top with the action. Two, you wouldn't have had to have made it PG-13. It could have been rated R, and you could have had lots of fun with the violence being ridiculous and goofy and whatever else. But yeah, then you wouldn't have wasted screen time with the unbelievable, or not unbelievable, but just boring family dynamic.
Yeah, some of the action scenes where they used that effect of just real fast and blurry shots.
Yeah, so you don't see anything.
You can't tell them what's going on.
Cut away too soon.
Yeah.
I just want violence.
Yeah.
Die Hard violence, some good old 80s violence and gore. So yeah, that's pretty much all we got for spoiler free. We're about to do spoilers now, so if you haven't seen it yet or if you care, go ahead and just shut it off now. Make sure though that you give a like and a share, and of course, if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys. So yeah, as for the plot, I really felt like, okay, so if you haven't seen it yet, the movie starts out and you're going like, oh, he's the bad guy. No, he's the bad guy. And then you're kind of right on both.
Yeah.
And then the first bad guy, though, which is his best friend or whatever, he dies in the first 15 minutes. And his motivation is completely different than the other bad guy's motivation. So the first motivation is, I got screwed over by you because I lost my life and you got a great life. Which is just happenstance anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it was an accident. They were trying to save somebody and it went wrong. So his motivation was stupid, and I was thinking that was the whole motivation at first. And I was like, that's way overblown. What's happening is way overblown for that. But then you've got a whole nother motivation of these other people trying to scare the owner of the building into coming out of hiding so they can take this drive from him so that he can reverse engineer this thing and hide everybody's identities. And I was like, what is the connection here? How did they come in contact? What is going on? And of all people, why did they bring Dwayne Johnson into this? Why? And you could have picked any minor league, whatever his occupation was, that didn't have a background as a Navy SEAL to come and do this, so you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I don't understand why they grabbed him, like why he was involved in it. They never explained why they chose him to...
Other than the best friend connection. And,
but...
And his story arc was pointless.
Yeah, he was gone in the first 15 minutes, and...
A big reason why Die Hard is so popular is because you've got a great hero, but you've got a great villain. The villain in this, he was just a villain.
Yeah, he
Nothing memorable at all.
Just a hitman. Well, not even a hitman. He was just a, what did they call him? He was a hire. He worked for several gangs, several gangs. So he was just a thug for hire.
Yeah,
he was
nothing memorable about him.
He was the main.
He had an accent.
Yeah,
good for him. Yeah. That's all I'll remember about him was he had an accent.
I think.
Yeah, about 6 foot, 200 pounds. Yeah. Type that in your computer. Go.
Yeah. One other silly thing for me that, like, I grew up with a dad with one leg, so like I know like watching him do some of these things with this prosthetic leg, just too over the top for me at points. I'm like, the door when he held the door.
Yeah, so it's like,
how did he hobble over there so quickly?
He's across the room. He just like climbed up 2-3 stories of rope in through this window, and he sees this door closing. He grabs his prosthetic leg off the ground, which he also had to pull up by the rope, and it turns and it shows the door closing again, and you're thinking, oh, he's gonna throw it in between the door like Indiana Jones style. No, his hand pushes it through. It's like, how did he get across the room and do that in 2 seconds? Like, what?
Bad.
Oh, it was just dumb.
The door was, I felt like the door was nearly closed by the time they, like, there's no way it would have fit there. Yeah. It was
Not at all.
Ridiculous. Not to mention the scene leading up to that. He's climbing and he falls, and the rope catches his prosthetic legs, and he's dangling from his prosthetic
And it doesn't
leg.
pop out.
No, nothing. And then he has to pull himself up.
And his pants ripped, and then they weren't ripped anymore, and
yeah.
he's climbing on walls with duct tape on his hands.
Yeah, the duct tape on the wall is like
what?
Oh, that was bad. That was probably,
duct tape?
That was probably one of the most ridiculous.
That made me laugh, and I was just going, okay, now we're getting into territory where we're jumping the shark. This is going to be good. But then it got boring again after that. It couldn't stay consistent. It's like, if you're going to jump the shark, gotta go all the way. Just keep doing it. Like the first 15 minutes of the movie, I was like, oh, I thought this was goofy over the top. I'm not getting that vibe at all.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like, I mean, it started getting a little goofy, but not bad goofy.
Yeah, as the action picked up.
And then like halfway through was when you finally got a moment where you're like, that's dumb. But it's like, it took until halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is boring.
Well, they did. Well, you called the one scene when they had the room with all the mirrors. You're like, oh, that'll come back. And then that's where the final fight scene was, of course. It all just landed perfectly there.
Of course. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's not trying to be creative. It's just there for entertainment. But if you're going to be the most predictable, over-the-top entertainment possible, gotta do it exciting.
Yeah.
Gotta do it big. They didn't do it big.
They didn't do it big enough, and it just ended up being like a generic movie.
You have this room of mirrors, basically, or it's not mirrors. It's like video cloaking stuff. So like it videotapes behind it, in front of it, and whatever, and projects that on front of it.
Gives it the funhouse effect.
Yeah, it's basically it's a futuristic funhouse. So they've got this whole action sequence going on in there, going exactly how you would think it would. You know, people shooting mirrors instead of each other, people popping up behind other people, people popping around corners, yada, yada, yada. So we've got this scene where the bad guy is standing, looking away from... He was looking away from him.
Yeah, that's what really got me. He was...
Okay.
There was a cliff in front of him.
So he's at this ledge, looking away, and Dwayne Johnson comes up behind him and goes, "Turn around," which, by the way, is said like 10 times in this movie. Side note. And he turns around, and surprise, surprise, he's got the daughter. And you're like, oh no. That's also the 5th time that's happened in this movie.
Yeah, she got caught a bunch of times.
Dwayne says, "Give me my daughter back." And he goes, "No, drop the gun." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he drops the gun. And he goes, "Anything else you have to say?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm behind you." And he turns around and he tackles him. And it's like, no. Yeah. Like, you already established that it's impossible in this situation for him to be behind him. Yeah. He had him to turn around.
Yeah.
And why would you put the gun down if you're behind him?
Yeah.
And if you were looking in a direct reflection, directly in front of you, the reflection would include you. Yeah.
Not to mention there was a cliff directly behind him.
Yeah!
He came from the side, if anything. There was nothing behind him. He was facing a cliff. He couldn't have been behind you. Like,
But this is like bad, but not in an entertaining way. Like, it's entertaining to talk about it.
It was like something they overlooked. And
to see it isn't funny. It's just like, oh, come on. So there's this like tablet that controls the whole building's security and everything, and the wife is like on it, like doing stuff. And then the guy's like, "Oh, have you done it yet?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm working on it." And then she does it, and he goes, "How did you do that?" And it's literally like, boop, boop, 2 buttons. Got it.
It said reboot system. Like, it wasn't hidden, it was a reboot system.
I turned it off and on again.
Yeah.
That's another thing. They thought that, like, by establishing callback jokes, that would show character chemistry. It didn't.
About 4 times there was at least a callback joke. At least 4. 3 or 4.
Yeah, and they were all painfully bad. At the beginning, it was actually, in my opinion, kind of painful mansplaining going on between Dwayne Johnson and his wife. She's like, "Can you get me to fix the phone again? Like, I can't fix the phone." And he's like, "How many times have I told you? If it's broken, just turn it off and turn it back on." And she's like, "Oh, but I prefer it when you do it." I'm like,
the helpless female, yeah.
Oh my god. Like, this is 2018, folks. Yeah. Can we not?
Like, I didn't know how to restart my phone.
Like, why? And so then they've got the callback to that. They've got a callback to a million different things, and they're all bad. One of the other callbacks is every time Dwayne Johnson tells his wife, "I love you," she goes, "You better." And that's, okay, fun, cutesy, whatever. The problem with that is she never once in this entire movie shows affection toward him. Because every time he does something affectionate, her response is sarcastic back. And that's fine once in a while, but it's like, I never got the idea that she actually cared about him, because they never showed it. It was always sarcastic, and it was just like, see, they're a real family. This is how real families interact, right? And it's like, no.
Also,
I don't think so.
Every time, you know, like, she would do the "you better," like it just came off like like a too sensitive girlfriend, like an insecure girlfriend who was just like, "Oh no, you better love me." Like, it's just annoying.
Yeah. Also, at the time that he put her in the elevator, like, yeah, you better, because if you don't love me, I'm dead.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
that was probably the best idea in the entire movie, was dropping her down the elevator.
Yeah, so that was actually one of the only well-written parts in the whole movie, was he's explaining to her how the elevator system works. So he's going to cut the line, she's going to drop, and then she has to pull the emergency brake, and then the magnets are going to catch her. But then they, of course, ruin it by, it's like, count to 5. And she goes, 5, 4, 3, 2...
2 1/4, 2 1/2,
1, and then doesn't pull it. After she counts to 1, she waits another like 5 seconds and then pulls it. I'm like, either his calculation was way off,
yeah,
or she's dead. One or the other. There were several moments in this movie too where it's like he went dramatically from being beat up and crawling on the floor to, I'm running full speed now and I'm okay. And I was like, can we get some consistency in how you are? Like, I don't know. It showed him not knowing how to run at the beginning of the movie. By the end of the movie, he was, I can freaking sprint. Doesn't even bother me.
If you're using duct tape, it's not fixed. You're not using enough.
Stupid duct tape. Stupid. I'm surprised they didn't have WD-40 in there somewhere too.
Some more household appliance. WD-40, some duct tape, some Pledge. Scrubbing bubbles.
He just scrubs his bald head. You gotta get it shiny.
Trying out for Mr. Clean movie later.
The bad guy sees his reflection in his head. I can't kill him, it's me! Haha, fooled you, I'm behind you.
Yeah, you're just seeing a reflection of my head, that's all it is. I'm really under you.
So yeah, that's our view on it. I mean, you might still have fun. I don't regret seeing it, but it's definitely not something that I'm gonna get on DVD or be like, hey, you should go see that. If you had more people watching it together, making fun of it together, it might be a little bit more enjoyable, but it's definitely not so bad over the top that you can just do it on your own. I think probably a couple drinks and maybe a few more friends and it would be more fun, but even then I'm not positive because, like I said, that does have boring elements to it. It's kind of boring at times.
Yeah, it was. There was a few parts where I was yawning.
Yeah. I thought you fell asleep at one point.
I doze off a couple of times. Not like I close my eyes and I immediately wake up. I don't actually sleep, but I close my eyes and I realize I'm dozing off. Especially if something loud happens, I jump back up. What happened?
So yeah, that's what we thought. If you liked it or if you didn't like it, make sure you leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Bye.